Oh, now it's going. Okay.
And
I love
welcome.
how people.
Oh
I
yeah,
love
you
how
do that
people
part.
can see the beginning of this of
Before
how
you say
shitty we
welcome,
are. Yeah.
before to show how organized it is. It's what people are seeing is how much pre-show production meetings we do, and how we get all the shit straight before the bright lights come on. That's what people are seeing.
Our pre-production meeting is literally me texting you, going, "Hey, can you do this today?" And you saying, "Yeah," and then 5 minutes before we do it, you
Minutes
say,
later,
"I
I
can't do
can't
it
do it.
anymore."
Yeah,
All right,
that's it.
all
They've
right, here we
cracked the
go.
code.
All right, here we go. Hey again, everybody, and welcome into Talking Tuscaloosa. Luke Robinson, along with Jimmy Stein, as always. Jimmy, how are you today?
Wondering if video killed the rock star.
Um, I think the answer is yes.
We have answered
It
that definitively.
it
Took
killed the
MTV.
podcast stars.
It certainly did. Yeah, 36 years it took MTV to answer that question, and we answered it in just 2 episodes.
You know, I don't think we did one of these last week. I went to Vandy. I went to the Vandy game. It was hot as shit. But I don't. I mean, certainly nobody wants to talk about that. But Alabama Ole Miss was Vandy Alabama Part Two. It's just a
Right.
continuation.
It really was.
And
It's like the 5th through 8th quarter.
it really. It was bad. I kind of felt bad for us. Here's what's even funnier. On both first drives of these last two blowouts, we punted. I mean, this could have been a lot worse. I mean, it's just weird for me to think, oh, we beat somebody 59-0 and we punted on the first drive, beat somebody 66-3 and punted on the first drive.
Yeah, somebody tweet us with this stat. I would love to know this stat. How many offensive possessions that aren't the end of half or end of game? How many offensive possessions do we have against Ole Miss and Vanderbilt? And how many times did we punt? Probably 4 times, 3 times. I mean, we haven't punted much. We're just scoring.
Yeah, I mean, we're scoring or we're missing a field goal, but we're not even doing a lot of that. We're damn sure not turning it over, or we're taking a knee.
Yep, that's right. That's what I meant. I meant end of half or end of game where we're trying not to score. That doesn't count. But on all the possessions other than end of half, end of game, I bet, Luke, we've only punted 3 or 4 times at the most in the last 8 quarters. That's incredible considering we're not turning it over or getting stuffed on 4th down. That's not happening either. But let's just keep in mind this is Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. And I'm not going to make too much of the fact how bad they are. Let's remember that Vanderbilt beat Kansas State, who was in the top 25 the week before they played us. So we're not talking about your granddaddy's Vanderbilt. This is a good Vanderbilt team for Vanderbilt, and an Ole Miss team that is not devoid of talent. Ole Miss has some good. Heck, we're not going to play a better quarterback. You wouldn't know that from watching that game, but we're not going to play a better quarterback in the regular season than
we're not going to play a better group of wide receivers.
No, that's exactly right. So these aren't talentless hacks, but obviously it's also not Auburn and Georgia. And I think a challenge for us on the podcast, Luke, among the many challenges now that we're on video, that's a challenge in and of itself. But among our challenges, I think, is how are we going to avoid talking about Auburn and Georgia until it gets here, assuming Georgia gets here if we beat Auburn. I'm just saying that this season very much today, Luke, feels like a countdown till the Auburn game, and if we beat Auburn, we play Georgia. I mean, it just feels like that, and I think I'll go this far, Luke. Tell me if you disagree with this. Texas A&M, flaws and all, is the second best team left on our schedule behind Auburn.
In the regular season, yes.
In the regular season.
Oh, I don't think there's any question because LSU is about to throw in the beads. I'm telling you, those guys. I mean, they're having team meetings with, and they're saying bring in the coordinators because I don't think Joe Oliva can understand Coach Orgeron, and he's like, I need a translator or subtitles. I need something here to help me understand what the hell his plan is because. You know, and Coach O's dogging the coordinators in press conferences, and it's nutty. But yeah, and then Mississippi State, I thought they were going to be a tough out, but now their best win is against an LSU team that I just described. So, yeah, I think that I think Texas A&M is the toughest game. We're a 26-point favorite. That's one thing that has been brilliant so far this season to me is somehow, some way, Nick Saban has been able to keep all these weapons happy. Maybe it goes to our new OC more so than Saban, but I don't know how. I mean, I guess when you're blowing people out this badly, it's easy to keep everybody happy. But Calvin Ridley's still getting his catches. The new kids are now getting catches. I mean, Ruggs has caught a couple of TD passes. Judy's caught one. Smith has caught one. Irv Smith is getting the occasional catch. Hale Hinches is getting the occasional catch. All the running backs are getting carries, including Brian Robinson. And Ronnie Clark, for the love of all things. God bless him, but I didn't think he was going to get a lot of carries this year. Man, it's unbelievable that all the weapons are getting touches, and it not necessarily meaningful touches. Of course, Tua's getting his touches too, but touches that matter to them. And at a time when they're like, they don't get touches in terms of, okay, go out there and just run the clock out. I mean, Tua's getting to throw. Tua's getting play action pass minutes. It's great. It's great. And so it's a big thing. The biggest loser in all this, besides the SEC reputation, which I think that is clear, is CBS. Brad Nessler. Yeah. Can you imagine Brad Nessler? He starts out the season with Florida, Tennessee, and he's like, oh my God, if all the SEC games are like this, the next two games are a combined 100 to nothing. They may never go back to the state of Tennessee.
And how do you find an SEC game of the week with three good teams?
You don't. But now, see, okay, here's it's one of those would you rather. If you're CBS, would you rather have pretty good games all throughout the year, or at the end of the season,
right?
You are the must-watch network because
Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn look huge today.
And then an SEC championship game.
Sure.
Those are now. There's a weekend buffer in between Auburn, Georgia, and the Iron Bowl, but there's 3 of the 4 weeks where CBS is the must-watch. Even if it's Alabama, Georgia, is must-watch. There's no doubt. If it's Auburn, Georgia, it's must-watch, even though it's a rematch. I mean, it's crazy. CBS is going to be. They need to sell all their advertising those last 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, this week they have Florida LSU, who have 2 big fan bases, and I think it'll get decent ratings compared to other games that might be on. But
compared to what? Old Love Boats?
Well, that's what Nick and Terry Saban are watching. If you remember them,
that's right.
That's what they're watching. Nick will interrupt pregame meetings at A&M. Captain Stubing's on. Everybody quiet. But Florida LSU is an interesting game. That's the CBS game. It's interesting in the sense that dumpster fires. I mean, you can't look away, right? I mean, what's going on with LSU? You can't look away.
I can't, but I think it's very easy for people. You can't. Yeah. I can't because
LSU's the rival, so we want to know what's going on.
And I'm not necessarily reveling in their misery. I don't hate LSU. I don't look at LSU the same way I look at Auburn or Tennessee. I look at LSU like they've been our equal for a while, and it's because of the Saban thing. I think there's a cool dynamic here. But I'm interested in how LSU is handling this whole thing. Apparently, Coach O's radio show, which why the hell I hadn't been listening to that all these years, is beyond me.
That's an epic fail on our part. It should be the first half of our podcast every week.
That should just be our podcast. I should have an introduction. You say something, and then we just do that.
Because it's just more entertaining. With subtitles, of course, because who the hell knows what Crazy Ed's saying.
Somebody made fun of Joe Oliva's masculinity. A caller called in.
Yes, heard that.
Somebody else called in and said something about Coach O, and he was like, well, I don't know about you, but I've earned this shit, and you sound like a dumbass. I mean, it's great. It's good radio.
It's great theater.
But if you are a Penn State fan, if you are a USC fan, if you're a Washington fan, if you're a Clemson fan, you're going to find something else to watch or do.
That's right. Because we're not playing these teams at the end. I mean, that's certainly true. And here's another. I've got a million things to say today for some reason. How about this? If Florida beats LSU, and we expect that to happen, right? We expect that Florida.
I'm going to tell you, man. I feel like LSU wins this, and the reason is
really.
Tell me 2 worse offenses in the league. Are there 2 offenses that are worse than these 2?
I'm thinking
Tennessee, but they got John Kelly, and John Kelly's a badass.
John Kelly's a good player.
He's the leading rusher in the conference.
Geis should be a good player. I don't know what the hell's going on there.
Geis is hanging up the cleats early this year.
My point is, I expect Florida to win, and if Florida does in fact win, aren't they like they're 4-1 if they win? They're 4-1 with wins.
Well, yeah.
They're 4-1 with wins over Tennessee and LSU and Vanderbilt. So they're 4-1 with 3 SEC wins. And when is the last time Florida's been 4-1 and people say, "Oh God, they're terrible"? You know what I mean? It's just kind of weird. And I'm not saying they are terrible. They probably are terrible compared to really good teams.
They are terrible.
Compared to really good teams, they are. But it's just kind of a new universe where Florida can beat LSU to get to 4-1, and people go, "Yeah, well, Florida sucks." But it's true, they do suck, or partly suck. They mostly suck. They mostly suck.
Listen, and I know this, for some people, this is a podcast, and they're not going to be able to see my doing this, but Thank God. Seems to me after every win that that Jim McElwain he walks off the field going, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how we won. They could have beaten Michigan without scoring anything offensively.
They led at the half. Didn't they lead at the half?
They had 2 pick sixes, and that was about it. I mean, they are so anemic offensively, but LSU is too. And the thing is, though, I don't know why I feel like LSU can win this game, and I want LSU to win this game, because if LSU doesn't win this game, and then CBS is pretty much already committed to that Alabama LSU game being at night.
That's their prime time event of the year is number 1 Alabama versus a possibly 3-6 LSU team. They could be like 3-6 or 4-5. I mean, that's their prime time game of the year.
It really is like having a show with the guy's name in the title, and then you're like, okay, but he can't be here. It's like tonight we're having the Jerry Lewis telethon, but instead of Jerry Lewis, we've got to give you Jerry. We found the next best Jerry we could find, Jerry Sandusky. I mean, that would be just awful. I mean, nobody would watch that. That's the same way this would be.
It's kind of like going to Broadway. It's like a Broadway show of Top Gun, and you're going to see Top Gun with Tom Cruise on Broadway, and they say, and in Tom Cruise's place tonight, because he can't be here, is Eric Stonestreet. Like Eric Stonestreet. I was just coming up with a random, not Tom Cruise guy.
I thought you were going to say Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts' brother. You know, who's always a villain.
Better.
Yeah. That's better. You could have used that.
Because he's such a shitty actor that way. That's why he's typecast that way. They're like, okay, this character is a shitty villain. Let's think of the shittiest actor, so he'll be convincing as a shitty villain. And then, it's Eric Roberts. Is he available? And of course, he's very available.
Do you think Eric Roberts was born looking like he was 62? Because if you told me right now, like Eric Roberts has looked 62 years old his entire life. Every movie I've ever seen, he looks 60. But it's cool when he's 82. People are going to be like, man, he looks good for 82. But like, assuming he's got to be like 40 something, he looks like shit right now. But when he's 82, I think he's going to look the exact same. He's going to be. You can't get more wrinkled than he is right now, right? I mean, unless you put him in a laundry basket for a week, you couldn't get more wrinkled.
Wouldn't it be something on his downtime if he really was a bad guy? If he really was a bad guy on his downtime.
If he had a cat and he was petting it?
No, like between movies, he's literally a liaison between a Mexican drug cartel and American dealers. He's like literally the liaison, and he's like in the middle of a drug deal, moving a ton of drugs from Mexico to like Las Vegas. And he's like, whoa, hold on. 20th Century Fox is on the line. Yeah, Tom Cruise can't be there for Top Gun. I've got to stand in.
Yeah, I've got something to do in New York.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe off Broadway.
I think about that sometimes. The guys that are typecast as assholes, guys that play assholes in movies consistently, at some point, don't you have to like, holy shit, maybe I'm an asshole?
Because I'm going to say, I think it goes the other way. I think if you play an asshole consistently, then you have to be a pretty nice guy, because if you are an asshole and then you play an asshole, the problem is, I don't know that you can, like, you wouldn't know it. You know what I mean? You wouldn't know how to get there. I mean, you would think it just comes naturally. I mean, if the director says to you, hey, man, just be yourself, you're already an asshole. If you're an asshole, you're going to take that the wrong way and be like, well, I got an idea. Screw you, and I'm not doing this movie. But if you're a nice guy,
I'm not going to be the Manny anymore.
You're right. You can get into character.
Yep. Maybe that's it. That means conversely that everybody that plays nice guy, that means that in real life, Tom Hanks is a raging asshole because he's a nice guy in every movie he ever plays.
Well, it's sort of like there are people that say porn stars really don't like sex off screen, and I'm always like, man, you could have fooled me. They look like they're enjoying that.
Well, they're convincing.
They're pretty convincing.
They probably have unappreciated talents as actors then.
And the Emmy goes to, oh my God, I bought into that hook, line, and sinker. Plus, any porn star.
Can you believe in real life? Oh yeah.
Any porn star watching this probably like, no, Luke, we do enjoy sex.
Can you believe in real life she just wants to watch the games on TV? And
she just wants to cuddle.
And the Oscar for best sex scene goes to the girl who really, she really got headaches. The girl with every night that's got a headache at home.
I have always thought about that. Like, I wouldn't say always thought about it. That sounds pretty skanky. But I wonder, like, if you're dating or married to a porn star, that's got to be tough, right?
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Well, we saw in was it Boogie Nights, William H. Macy's character?
Oh man, that's a good point.
Yeah, he liked.
That was very tough. But now, in his defense,
I'm not sure he handled it well.
No, in his defense, she was doing it like when there were no cameras there too.
Yeah, I mean,
like if you were doing it for work and she's making
practicing
$250,000 a movie, I guess you could come to grips with it. I mean, I wouldn't, but I'm saying I guess somebody could.
Hey, in real life, even the sex scenes in just rated R movies and PG-13 movies, these actors that date, in real life there are fights. Like Jennifer Aniston and Justin Theroux, just name one. Jennifer Aniston's got some sex scene in a movie. He comes home and Justin Theroux's not talking, and she's like, "Why aren't you talking to me today?" And he's like, I watched that movie. I watched the cutouts from the movie you just did, and I think that scene with Brad Pitt. Are y'all back together again? That looked too real. Those fights.
No, they definitely happen.
They definitely. So in porn, it would have to be worse, but. On the other hand, you're a real jerk if you're like, I think you're having sex with someone else. Well, I am a porn star.
Yes, I am. According to my pay stub, I'm doing it quite often.
Sign up for? What did you sign up for, you idiot? It's like, what are we talking about again?
These tax returns, I've been doing it since 2006. Okay.
Yeah, but no cameras. I'm just practicing.
Gotta warm up, man. It's night school.
Why do we always end up on this subject?
I don't know, but it's great. It's
like
great.
It's like 7 shows in a row.
Texas A&M, the line is 26.
Oh yeah.
It seems excessive.
Speaking of jail sex, let's talk about the Texas A&M game.
It seems excessive because A&M is 4-1, and their only loss is to UCLA, where they just crap the bed right there at the end. But I think the line may be low, Jimmy. I don't know that they're going to be able to. And it feels like Kevin Sumlin. He hadn't said this, obviously. It feels like he's saying, "Look, okay, we're going to get the hell beat out of us, so this kind of doesn't count. This is our sex off camera.
We're just practicing.
We're just practicing
for the other ass beatings we have coming our way. Well, this is the way I look at the matchup is I don't think A&M can stop Alabama. I don't think they can. I think Alabama can just run the ball with their 5-headed monster at running back. And it's really a 6-headed monster because Jalen Hurts is a running back too. So, between Josh and Damian and Najee and Bo and Brian Robinson, who's now getting snaps in the first quarter of games at H-back, or Najee, who's also playing some H-back.
I said before Najee is what I said.
Yeah, but even before Najee, he gets and frankly, we could probably talk about scrimmages now. Brian Robinson and Najee Harris were playing H-back in the scrimmages, in the fall. So they saw this coming as a way to get more of the backs on the field, trying to get your best 11 out there. But I don't think A&M, Luke, can just stop us from running the ball all day long. And when they overcommit to stop the run, Jalen has improved to the point that he's going to make them pay that way. I see Alabama continuing to score because A&M's better athletes, because it's on the road, because Alabama has scored 59 and then 66. I'm going to peel back my prediction to Alabama scoring somewhere in the 40s. And doesn't that sound ridiculous? Like, okay, let's back up off the number they've been scoring. They're only going to score 45 on the road in an SEC game. But I don't know, 42, 45. points. That seems right for me for Alabama. I just don't see A&M forcing Alabama to punt more than 2 or 3 times. Conversely, A&M can run the ball. They do have talented wideouts. Christian Kirk is probably as talented as any offensive player in this league with the ball in his hands. But I think what ultimately is A&M's undoing is their offense is so quarterback focused. Everything is built around the quarterback, and it's a quarterback focused offense. And their guy, who is talented, but he is a true freshman, and a true freshman against Alabama's defense, while not a vintage Nick Saban defense, it's still Alabama good, and it's going to overwhelm Kellen Mond. We'll give him a handful maybe of chunk plays he might make, but I like Alabama in this game, Luke, somewhere around 42-14.
At least. And I'm going to say that, you know what Kellen Mond is? He's Jalen Hurts without the results. I mean, he's strong, he's big.
He's what a true freshman is supposed to look like.
He is what
That's what a true freshman
Hurts
is supposed to look like.
Exactly.
Yep.
But Hurts is a better athlete. Hurts is a little better all the way around athletically and whatever, but Hurts also just has an it factor. Gary Danielson, again, if we didn't do the podcast last week, and I don't think we did, Gary Danielson said something about they were talking about Tua Tagovailoa and how he throws darts, and he does. He throws a better pass than Jalen Hurts. I don't think I'm insulting anybody or enlightening anybody when I say that. Right. And so when Tua took off one time, Brad Nessler said, "Man, Tua can run pretty well too." And Gary Danielson was like, "Yeah, but he ain't Hurts." And Nessler was like, "Yeah, nobody runs on air the way Hurts does." There was a great example. The first scoring drive against Ole Miss, 3rd down and about 3 or 4 yards, whatever it was. Hurts takes off after realizing everybody's covered, and you think it's going to be a 6-yard gain, and he breaks out, and then there are 2 people that are right beside him, and it looks like he's running slower, but he's running past them. It made no sense. I mean, watching it's an optical illusion the way he runs
because he's a glider.
He's a glider, and he's got that Matt Jones Arkansas thing going where you're like, he doesn't look fast, but he's outrunning everybody. I don't know how this works.
He has really, really strong, legs, strong thighs. He squats like 650 pounds. I think those guys with, they tend to chew up more ground because they're so powerful, but it doesn't look like, who looks fast. And I think it's your pal. Pass Inc. make a point about, shorter point guards. They always look fast because their legs have to move faster to achieve the same, eating up the court. Their legs have to move twice as fast as a taller point guard. So sometimes we can get confused thinking, man, that 5'10" guy's quick and that 6'4" guy's slow.
Justin Coleman is who he was talking about. Everybody talked about he's quick as a water bug. He's like, he's not as quick as you think. I mean, people are guarding him.
Great example. Great example. Yep, great example. So I think in football it's the same way. The shorter guys, they have to make twice as many steps to make up the ground, and their legs move. Their legs appear to be moving faster, but they're not really eating up the ground. So I think when Jalen runs the 40, when he gets to Indianapolis in 2 years, hopefully, I imagine he's going to end up, I think he's going to end up in the mid 4.5s, maybe the high 4.5s, which is very, very fast for a quarterback and typical speed for a 200-pound plus running back. I think he moves somewhere around that range. I would guess. I know there's some sort of 40 time out there that he supposedly ran a 4.4 to Alabama. I don't buy any of those things. To me, it's don't tell me what your 40 time is. Show it to me at Indianapolis. That's where it matters, and that's where the real time is.
No, I totally agree. I don't even, when people say so-and-so runs a 4.4 or 4.5, I don't even listen to that shit anymore because they all make up these numbers. But, okay.
Hey, did you see this post the other day? I'm not going to talk about 40s the whole time, but this is interesting. Somebody on TI or one of the big message boards said something about how Damian Harris is always getting caught from behind and he's slow for a back. And I agree. I don't think Damian Harris has elite top-end speed. But at the Nike opening, and I'm not saying these are actual times that you'd seen in Indianapolis. I don't know what they do with the 40 there, but you know what Damian Harris's time at the opening was? 4.48.
Wow.
4.48. And when you say that is surprising to me because he looks like a 4.6 guy to me on at Alabama. He looks like a mid 4.6 guy to me running. But you know what, that same camp, and I'm not saying 4.48 is his real time, but at the same camp and the same conditions, here's 3 guys that ran slower. Derwin James, 4.50. Minkah Fitzpatrick, 4.51. You telling me right now Damian Harris is faster than Minkah Fitzpatrick? No way. And also, this name's Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley was at that opening and ran a 4.68, way slower than Damien Harris. But if those two race today, I know where all my money is on
There's no
Barkley.
question. There's no question.
It just shows how you can't put too much stock into those high school 40 times. And these kids change in college when they add all this muscle weight.
Well, and we've talked about that before. Against USC twice, he got caught from behind. Against Ole Miss last year, he got caught from behind. But what people do fail to realize is usually when he's breaking free, it's because he broke through the middle. And so you've got two safeties converging on him that have the angle. And they usually do. I mean, they catch up to him, but they have the angle, and they're probably just as fast as he is. And so I guess geometry is going to tell you that he's probably going to get caught in that regard. And he usually has to break another tackle somewhere in there. So it's a little stop and start again that may hold him up. He got caught again this past weekend against Ole Miss, but not really caught so much as he breaks up the middle and then everything funnels towards him, and everybody has the angle and they're able to get him by the back of his jersey. And it's got to be frustrating for him.
Speed doesn't matter to me as a back. I mean, in terms of a guy who likes to evaluate talent and get, speed, the actual 40 time, if it's a back that runs in the mid 4.6s or even high 4.6s, I don't rule them out as being an elite back, because as far as a back goes, to me, the most important thing is burst. I want to know what you do in those first 10 yards. How much burst do you have? And I think Damien Harris has excellent burst. In fact, I think his burst, his first 10 yards, his stop to 10 yards is better than Bo Scarborough. As a matter of fact, I think it's much better than Bo Scarborough. Now, if they ran the 40, I think they're going to have very similar 40 times, but that's because Damien's going to get off to a better start, and by the time they get to 40 yards, Bo's going to catch him. But they're going to have about the same 40 time. But Damien's burst is much better, and I won't be shocked if Damien's a better NFL player than Bo simply because of that burst.
Yeah, and why? First of all, why is it the 40-yard dash?
Why?
That's just like, who the hell picked that?
It is a strange thing. I've read articles before about why I picked 40, and I can't remember what those articles are, so I don't know what the actual genesis was. But for me, for backs in particular, I think 40 is a great. I mean, because running the 100, I mean, you never do that. You never do that.
25 better.
I agree that maybe 25 is better for many positions, and maybe 25 is good for a back, because that's about as far as a back's going to run in the NFL. But really, to me, as a back, your number one trait as far as speed and quickness goes, to me, is what do you do between your start and your first 10 yards? Because in the NFL in particular, I mean, how many 20-yard plus runs are there in the NFL? And plus, just about every back, those NFL defensive backs are so damn fast. How many 80-yard touchdowns do we see on straight handoffs in the NFL? Almost none. The defensive backs are just too fast. And cornerbacks in the NFL are so tough, they can bring down backs one-on-one. You don't see that in college. There ain't a cornerback in the SEC that's going to tackle Bo Scarborough one-on-one, or it'd be freakish if they did.
And I guess it would be kind of screwy if you had just the 20-yard dash and you're like, oh, my God, that guy runs a 1.9 20-yard dash.
He ran a 1.2.
He ran a 1.2, guys. Jesus. He's booking it.
Sounds like Auburn's 40s. Sounds like Auburn's 40s.
That's what Auburn's putting right out now for the 40s, though.
I call it Auburn's annual 34-yard dash.
All right. Speaking of, let's wrap this up by saying, all right, the SEC pecking order right now. Would you put Alabama and then maybe a gap and then Georgia and then a small gap in Auburn, or would you flip-flop Georgia and Auburn?
No, I put Georgia 2. I think Georgia's a more well-rounded team. And I think a real difference for me, Luke, in terms of why Georgia's ahead of Auburn. I think defensively they're similar, but Georgia's ahead of Auburn to me because Nick Chubb and Sony Michel are better than Cameron Petway and Kerryon Johnson. I think Georgia's got elite backs that are good on any scale, and that's why I put Georgia ahead of Auburn for now, but a lot can change over the next month and a half. I'd also say Fromm and Stidham are sort of a draw to me today, but I could easily see one or the other being significantly better by the time November rolls around. So I think they're similar teams. I put them behind Alabama for now, but it's ridiculous of us to assert that Alabama is substantially better than either one. You're talking about in Auburn and Georgia today, teams that look good enough to win the SEC and go to the playoff. For Alabama fans just to blow that off and say, oh, we'll beat them 40-0. I mean, maybe that happens when we get there, but these are elite legit top 10 teams to me. I would have no problem ranking Georgia 4th or 5th and Auburn around 10th. And if we're living in a world, Luke, where we think the 4th and 5th ranked team is terrible, what world is this? I mean, of course, the 4th and 5th ranked team is a damn good football team. Of course they are.
No, I agree, and I would rank them that same way. The thing that scares me, boy, I think both of them. Scare is probably the wrong word, but I think both of them concern me enough where I think either one of them could beat Alabama. And the thing that concerns me about Georgia is their well-roundedness, is the fact that I think they're good just about everywhere. And I think they're going to give us fits just about everywhere. And by the time we play Fromm, he will have been more battle tested, assuming we get there in the SEC championship game. When we play Auburn, their offense does not scare me too terribly much. I feel like, they got some big wide receivers, and if they keep throwing to Kyle Davis, I think that's a good thing for them. But their offensive line isn't as good as Georgia's to me. Now, defensively, though, their defensive line looks like a defensive line Nick Saban would have to me. They look bigger. And, and I keep wondering, Jesus Christ, is it the uniforms? What the hell? Because they look bigger. Marlon Davidson looks big. Nick Coe looks big. Derek Brown looks big. I mean, those guys they're big, they're strong, and I like their linebackers. I don't think their linebackers are necessarily all SEC, but Deshaun Davis is a sure tackler and a fiery guy that is very Auburnish in the terms of he's going to celebrate every tackle, and that fires that crew up. Trey Williams is a good linebacker. He's not a great linebacker, but he's good. Carlton Davis is a very good defensive back. When we get there, a lot of Alabama fans are going to think that's just going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
Oh, heck no.
That being said, this weekend, I think we have a walk in the park.
I think it's a walk in the park based on what we've seen from A&M so far and what we've seen from Alabama so far. And like I said, I'm predicting 42-14, which sounds like a walk in the park. I would just say that A&M does have a handful of really good players. They have a handful of players that would play for us, no doubt about it. Christian Kirk may be the most explosive talent on the field. Kellen Mond is a guy that eventually is going to be a really good college quarterback. They have a pretty good pass rushers up front. And it's Texas and East Texas athletes. This is it. I think Alabama will win easily, and I think it will be a challenge if that makes sense.
It does, and unfortunately, Jimmy, I have to go. But I think this worked. I think it worked again, and I think that Lawrence will be able to turn this into something. And next week, assuming that you're not divorcing half of Mobile, which I guess would be all of Mobile, if you're divorcing one half and then the other half is they have another lawyer. But
represent the wife this week and the husband's next week.
That would be good. Do you do a lot of work like that where you represent both of them? Have you ever done that?
No. You can't actually, under the rules.
You can't have an uncontested where you go in.
I do uncontested divorces, but when you do an uncontested divorce, you got to represent one side or the other because they have differing legal interests. So you can't represent both parties; they have different legal interests. So when I do an uncontested divorce and I'm the only lawyer involved, the other party, if I represent the wife, the husband has to even sign a document under the law that says that I have advised him that he has a right to his own attorney and I do not represent his interests, even if what I'm doing is just drawing up the agreement my client told me to draw up. So
can I tell you something?
No,
I quit paying attention about a sentence and a half into that.
I quit paying attention too because when I talk about divorce stuff, there's an autopilot thing that goes on in the spiel because most everybody that comes in here has never been divorced, or I do the same spiel 5, 6, 7 times a day. It's just on autopilot now.
That did sound like the verbal equivalent of the warning on a mattress. Like you have to do it, but nobody's ever read it or listened to it.
Funny that we're talking about divorce and warnings on mattresses.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There should be a divorce warning on mattresses.
Warning: mattress may be stickier than it appears.
Warning: don't get too attached to this.
Literally. All right, everybody, roll Tide, and we will talk to y'all next week.
Roll Tide.
All right, thank you, bud.
See you, man.
See you, bud.